Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And it is a pleasure, and it's my honour to speak in favour of the amendment, Mr. Speaker. The amendment that was put in place to say that we be it resolved that the motion that the Speaker do now leave the chair for the House to go into Committee of Supplies be amended by adding the following: that the government recognize the cumulative effect of the increases in MSP taxes, hydro rates, ICBC premiums, and other fees and hidden taxes on British Columbian families. Mr. Speaker, I think it's a very good amendment, and I think it's worth spending some time speaking about this. And we have talked about this when we were speaking about the budget speeches in response to the budget, how the ordinary families are being burdened with tax over tax over tax by this government. In the meantime, how the people at the top 2% are continuing to get tax breaks from this government. So I think it's a good amendment, and I think the government should consider this, government members should consider this, because the effect it is leaving, the cumulative effect, is devastating. Not only just individuals, families, but also on institutions that depend on government taxes and the funding that comes from the government. I'll talk about a meeting that we had with District Parent Advisory Council in Surrey, and meeting with the Surrey School Board officials. And they will tell you the effects of these taxes, whether they're MSP, BC Hydro, the effect it leaves on their operating capacity to run those schools. The largest school district in the province, with over 71,000 students, and more coming every year. And it's not that this news was brought to this government out of a blue and no one knew that the Surrey and the south of Fraser was expanding, and they were growing faster than any other community in BC, perhaps in Canada, Mr. Speaker. And in Surrey alone, 1,000 new citizens are moving every month. And that has been the trend for the last 10, 15, 20 years. Mr. Speaker, what you're looking at is 12,000 new citizens moving in. That's like equivalent to a small town in British Columbia every year that is being added to. And when you look at Metro Vancouver forecasting what kind of population growth there will be in Lower Mainland, Mr. Speaker, 1 million new citizens will be moving in Lower Mainland by 2040. Mr. Speaker, most of them will be establishing themselves south of the Fraser and Tri-City area. So, Mr. Speaker, you're looking at almost another Surrey moving into south of the Fraser. We don't have services, thanks to this government's downloading of all these the taxes that I mentioned in the amendment, downloading onto the local governments, school boards. So they have to take that money out of their operation fund. And the operation fund is the one that they need to run the schools, to provide the in-class education to the students, provide support to the teachers, Mr. Speaker, and pay the bills on those buildings. And when you download, it's easy for them to stand here and make an order in council and make the announcement that the ICBC rate will go up. And now it's the school board or the city or other institutions who depend on the government funding, now they have to pay higher taxes, whether it's ICBC, for their vehicles that they utilize, or they pay on behalf of their employees MSP premium on their behalf. So now that money has to come from somewhere. And then BC Hydro, in order to warm those and cool those buildings where the students go and get their education. And a whole slew of all other buildings and other institutions and infrastructure that they have that where every increase in these areas will be downloaded onto them. Now they have to find that money somewhere else because the government does not fund that. And teachers, I mean, you will hear that. The minister stand up here when we negotiated teachers' contract. Mr. Speaker, if you really look at it, yes, they negotiated a collective agreement, but all the cost that was attached to signing that agreement, local government weren't funded for that. So then they have to scrounge around and find some money so that they could keep the students in the classroom, provide them the in-class education, Mr. Speaker. That is not the way to run the government, Mr. Speaker. When you talk to the Surrey School Board, they are, I would say, the most efficient school board in BC, the most efficient. And there's no more low-hanging fruit left out there. And the government continue to ask them to find more efficiencies. And they're saying they've done everything. You come and tell us where to find more money. They've got nothing to go to. So where the money will come from now? The money will come from in-class education of the students. Whether it's in portables, Mr. Speaker, the portables cost about $4.5 million a year, money that comes out of the in-class education of our students. And no other school board has to do that. So that is the extra burden placed on the Surrey School Board. And so that money comes out of the in-class classroom, which means that the students aren't getting the support and the resources that they need, that the teachers aren't getting support to the tune of $4.5 million. And that is equivalent to about 40 new teachers that they can hire every year. So the money is just thrown away. If the government, as they were requested by the ad hoc committee that was placed by the locals, Surrey School Board was made aware of that. We had teachers, we had Surrey Board of Trade, the City Council, the parents, the students, they were all on that ad hoc committee, and they all worked so hard, consulting, talking to many people, and talking to the government, trying to bring it to their attention. Minister after minister after minister, they met, and they got nowhere. But finally, thanks to their effort, Mr. Speaker, thanks to their efforts, some money was released. Since 2006, for the first time since 2006, when George Abbott was Minister of Education, he announced there will be some money towards capital improvement in Surrey. But when you really look at it, it's about 1/3 of what they need. And the student education continue to grow, Mr. Speaker. So that's the issue here. The government doesn't get it. Government doesn't get it. And they tell me that they have talked to their local MLAs. They all got letters. I've got those letters. The Liberal MLAs got the letters from Surrey. The minister got those letters from those parents. And they have made it clear how they're nickeled and dimed when their children go to school when it comes to providing them resources. The very basics, Mr. Speaker, very basics needs of the student, they had to fundraise. And the teachers had to pay money out of their own pockets. And this government brag about balancing the budget, which means on the backs of those students and those parents, Mr. Speaker. That's what they're doing. And that's not called efficiency and an efficient way of running the government. Anybody can do it if that's the way they want to balance the budget. Mr. Speaker, if you just take a look, in population, K-12 continue to go up. K-7 continue to go up. Portable projected by the ad hoc committee and the Surrey School Board by 2015, 300. By 2022, they'll go to 360. 360. And you know what? When the minister, who's from Surrey, Minister of Translink now, when we had that debate here, when he was the Minister of Education, and his response was, what's wrong with those portables? That was his response. With that kind of attitude, Mr. Speaker, no wonder nothing gets done. No wonder no one is championing the cause on the Liberal side on behalf of the Liberal MLAs there, on behalf of the parents there. So that's because that's the attitude they have. What's wrong with the portables, they say? Well, $4.5 million to begin with, that comes out of their in-class education. That's what's wrong with it. And Mr. Speaker, that money is anywhere to be seen because money will be continued to go away. It's gone. 40 new teachers they can hire, Mr. Speaker, 40 new teachers with that every year. So that's one thing. There are 148, those portables, at 40 elementary schools, 121 at 16 elementary schools, 16 are at the learning centers. The cost for each one of them is $85,000 to $125,000. And in addition to that, installation cost is $25,000 to $75,000. Annual operating cost is about $15,000 for each one of them. So total annual cost is over $4 million. Mr. Speaker, that's the money that's gone down the drain. That's basically what it is. There will be nothing to show for when somebody, a government will come in who will decide to put children first, their education first, and start to build some real classrooms for those students. Then these portables will be no use to nobody. So they're basically wasted money. So, Mr. Speaker, 2006 was the last time that they came and approved some capital funding. 2006. From 2006 to 2000, I believe it was 2012 when George Abbott made the announcement. For 6 years, not a single penny in capital improvement was approved for Surrey School Board. That's not the way to run the province, Mr. Speaker. So what they're looking for 2013 to 2017 capital plan, their top 10 projects will require about $111 million. 111, Mr. Speaker. And 2013, when they put that plan together, total what they need is a 273. But that's what we need today. What we need today. Because, Mr. Speaker, it takes for a new secondary school to build about 4 years. If you want to just add addition to it, still 31 months. Addition to elementary school, 31 months. A new elementary school will take 43 months. 43 months, 3.5 years, Mr. Speaker. And as a result of that, the member from White Rock, South Surrey White Rock, and I were together on a picket line when the students at Earl Marriott walked out. Lord Tweedsmuir, they walked out. This is the first in a long time, Mr. Speaker, that I could think of, that the high school students have to walk out of their classroom to make a point and bring a point to this government. We really need schools. That's what the students were saying. They should be in their classrooms, not walking out of their classrooms trying to make a point to this government. That's how bad the situation is, Mr. Speaker. And, you would think that anybody from Surrey, at least, would stand up here and say, yes, my community have some of those issues. Go to the cabinet table and say, yes, our community need additional capital funding to build new schools. Have seen no evidence of that so far, Mr. Speaker. None. So I think it's such a serious issue, and I hope that one day they will open up their ears and eyes and say, yes, we do have a responsibility to our youngsters, to our youth, to our students, because their education should be #1 priority. Because once that time is gone, in their lifetime, it's gone, never to come back. This is their opportunity, Mr. Speaker. So I think that's a very, very serious issue, and I want to perhaps bring it to your attention a letter that was written by Nicole Clare. She's on the District Advisory Committee, Parent District Advisory Committee. This is what she had to say. And I hope the ministers are paying attention from Surrey. On behalf of all the parents in Surrey, The Surrey DPAC would like to thank you for all joining us last night at our general meeting. We have been struggling with the crisis of space in Surrey for years, and your presence was important. As parents, we need to know that we have support in the legislature and that our children and their struggles matter. Mr. Speaker, no one from the Liberal Party showed up there. No one. No one at that meeting. It just shows how out of touch they are. They simply don't want to hear the truth from the real people, the parents and the students who have these concerns. This is what she finally had to write a letter to draw to their attention. The education funding issues in our province are real for every school district, and these are concerns that we want to address as well, but we cannot even begin those conversations. Pretty serious. Hopefully, it was clear to you last night that without dignified and appropriate space for our children to sit and be with their educators, it is difficult for us to even begin to address actual education issues, i.e. learning. Essentially, we are unable to focus on what is happening in our classrooms because we are so focused on actually having classroom for all our kids. If a family with 3 kids moved to Surrey today and lived right across the street from an elementary school, it is probable that none of their children could attend that school due to lack of space. Furthermore, it is likely that all 3 kids would need to attend separate schools. I had a friend in this situation 8 years ago, and considering that no new schools have been built in our area since that time, I'm sure that it would happen again today. With another election looming, we want to bring as much attention as we can to our unique and persistent challenges. I hope to participate in an on-air panel with the Global Morning News on February 8th. Once that is confirmed, I will let you know. In addition, we hope to keep actively engaged with you all. It felt like an impossible challenge to make any meaningful changes in Surrey. Your presence really did create a sense of hope that we can be heard and that our situation matters. DPAC plans to using the momentum that you have helped us create last night to make a real difference for our children. Again, our most sincere thanks, Nicole Clare, Surrey DPAC, BP. That's how bad it is. It's not coming from just the opposition or some politicians. It is coming from those people who are dealing with this issue day in and day out, Mr. Speaker. That's how bad the situation is. I hope that the minister from Surrey will pay attention to this. Let's talk about post-secondary education a bit, Mr. Speaker. And if it wasn't so bad, just for the, before I do that, I want to touch a couple other areas in our K-12 still. Mr. Speaker, since the 1990s, we have introduction of choice programs, the language programs in Surrey. 94, that government at that time introduced legislation that people of their, language of their parents, they can actually learn in their regular classrooms. So there are about 3 elementary schools in Surrey right now that offer Punjabi classes. Most of them are located in Newton area. Mr. Speaker, there's a demand in many other areas for Punjabi classes. PLE, Punjabi language educators, Balwant Sanghera and others have been working hard with Surrey School Board, Mr. Tinney, and with the colleges and universities to bring it to their attention that there is a demand and need for parents and their children to have those classes in place. But when you talk to the school board and others, what the real issue behind that is, again, lack of resources. There's no space. We can't put our children in regular classroom as today, like have 300 portables there, but we're going to find additional classroom for Punjabi classes or other classes that the parents may want. French immersion is another issue. So I want to just touch on many of those areas. It is really, really hard for parents to have the children to get the education and the language of their ancestors and of their parents, Mr. Speaker, because they deserve to have that language, because that's what the law says. It's in the book since 1994, Mr. Speaker. So I think I want to thank, there are many people who are working in that area. Mr. Gurjinder Sekon, Harpal Kang, Aman Sekon, Navneet Kalon, and Keval Taggar, and Balwant Sanghera, Sadhu Binning. They all visited us and other MLAs trying to make a case for Punjabi classes in Surrey schools. Again, it's like hitting a brick wall, because the school board, I know they want to accommodate that, but they cannot because they have no resources. So again, like I said, this is one opportunity for those students, those children, to learn that language. But once that opportunity is gone, it's gone. And what they are told now, if you live in Fleetwood area, you have to drive all the way over to Newton Delta side. I mean, parents don't have those kind of resources. Not all of them do, Mr. Speaker. So I think there's a serious issue of that, and I hope that the minister will pay attention to this and bring resources, not only capital improvement for our schools to build more schools, but also to provide those resources that are needed for our students to deliver those choice programs and education in their classrooms, Mr. Speaker. So let's talk about post-secondary education a bit, Mr. Speaker. We had the opportunity, and I know the minister will pay attention, and I have seen the minister that he does understand, at least he does understand, that when you look at the post-secondary education spaces in Surrey, south of the Fraser, we are way short, way short. If you look at the numbers provided to us by Simon Fraser University, you're looking at, Mr. Speaker, about 12 seats compared to 12.5 spaces compared to about 30 the rest of the BC, for that reason. Mr. Speaker, I thought he understood, but I'm having my doubts now because he started to clack around now. I think the issue here is to acknowledge that there is a problem. And that's the biggest problem that we have with this government, that they don't acknowledge that there is a serious problem. And here's, I'm going to read, this is from the Simon Fraser University themselves. If you look at what the demographics are for post-secondary education, nearly half of the new undergraduates, they come from Surrey. Half of them for all the graduates that comes out of SFU. Over 2/3 come from south of the Fraser communities. The chart clearly shows 48.3 from Surrey and 66.2 from south of the Fraser. Clearly there's a demand, Mr. Speaker, clearly there's a demand. And when you look at the spaces available to them, south of the Fraser is BC's fastest growing region. By 2036, population is projected to surpass Vancouver's. Surrey is home to BC's future labor force. 1 of 3 Surrey's residents are under 19, the largest of any municipality. And by 2016, the South Fraser will account for 1/3 of all BC high school graduates. Surrey School District 36 is the largest in BC with 32% of the grade 12 enrollments. Vancouver has 19%. The largest population of Aboriginal students in Lower Mainland, Mr. Speaker. Now, here are the numbers that the minister, I hope, will pay attention to. Only 16% of the Surrey residents hold a university degree. 16%. Less than half than the Vancouver's average of 33%. So there's a reason behind that. The reason is, I'm going to just read that next. Simon Fraser University, Surrey, and Kwantlen Polytechnic University offer only 12.7 post-secondary spaces for every 100 18 to 24-year-olds in the region, about 1/3 the average level of access for the rest of BC. So, Mr. Speaker, clearly there's a need. And on top of that, Mr. Speaker, when you look at what was promised, 5,000 spaces, Mr. Speaker, 5,000 were promised. What do we have in Surrey right now? The minister should know. Minister should know. We have just around 3,000. And what happened to that promise? Just like any other promise that they made in the last 15 years. Promised everything before the election. They did quite the opposite after the election. Here's another one. But the Minister of Advanced Education, here's your opportunity, sir. Here's your opportunity. There's a way to leave a legacy behind. Because these are the highest population of 19-year-olds, Mr. Speaker, 19-year-old in Lower Mainland. There is a future workforce. And Mr. Speaker, if all of them, and the government knows this, that all future jobs, 80% of the future jobs will require some sort of university degree or diploma. And Mr. Minister know that. If you're looking really, you have some vision for this province, that 5, 10, 20, 30 years down the road, somebody will be looking back, and who was the Minister of Advanced Education? What did he actually do? What did he actually do, Mr. Speaker? Nothing. But here's an opportunity for the minister to leave that legacy, to say that despite what the government record was, despite what the rest of the government record was, that he actually showed some leadership, and he actually understood those issues, and he's leaving a real rich legacy behind of a highly skilled population who would be able to compete with the rest of the world, Mr. Speaker. That's the challenge. The Minister of Technology, you know what? The Minister of Advanced Education make a lot more sense when he was clucking than what your thoughtful thoughts are, Minister of Mr. Speaker. So that's where you fit in. So anyway, Mr. Speaker, if you really look at 5,000 were promised, we can use them right now. They need space, they need resources, and the need is there because the population continues to grow. Mr. Speaker, so there's that. Mr. Speaker, there's that case for the need and the case for the resources for post-secondary education spaces south of the Fraser. Like many other areas, Mr. Speaker, and it is something that the minister must look at, and we will continue to talk about this. We were hoping that the Minister of Advanced Education, the Minister of Technology and Minister of Translink would make those cases. Obviously, they are not. We will continue to do that. Mr. Speaker, I just want to touch on some of the else, all the other cumulative effect that these MSP premium and others are leaving here. Forest industry, neglected again. 31,000 fewer workers are working today than when this government took power. 31,000. 150 fewer sawmills. More sawmills are being built and purchased by the BC companies in south of the border than here, Mr. Speaker. Here, what that means, that the forest companies of British Columbia are fleeing BC under the leadership of this government. That clearly is the indication. And then what are they doing? Nothing. Nothing, Mr. Speaker. Nothing comes out of these other than just yapping away and making all the political decisions rather than real policy decisions. Because that's what the government is all about, making real policy decisions so that people of today, tomorrow, and the future can benefit from those. And those will be the legacies people of the future will be looking at when they were looking at this government, Mr. Speaker. That's the problem with this government. I want to talk about crime again a little bit. Yesterday, the Solicitor General said that we should be supporting our RCMP. We certainly support our RCMP. Mr. Bayani, Mr. Prihar, all those frontline and all the frontline RCMP officers are doing tremendous and an excellent job trying to protect and do their job. But it's not the support that they're getting from this government. It's not the support that they need and deserve, and our people need and deserve from this government. That's where it's falling short. It's not the RCMP, it's the government here who doesn't come to the table from the province. BC Liberals, more photo ops, but not real delivery of all those.
Thank you, member.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. Now my time ran out.